Did you know that your house, land, or building can be stolen? It's not that the building and land goes missing. What goes missing is you. Let me explain. A deed is a document that establishes ownership of real property, and it's typically recorded at the county recorder, which gives the public notice of your ownership. Deed fraud is an illegal act when a criminal changes your deed without your knowledge or consent, thus transferring the ownership of a property out of your name. Deed fraud or title theft is a nationwide problem, putting every property owner at risk of losing one of their most valuable assets with absolutely no way to protect yourself. And when I use the term protect, I mean stop it from happening before it happens, because after it happens, it can be costly and difficult to transfer it back legally, ensuring that you have a marketable title, which allows you to sell, get a loan on, or rent your property. I'm Debbie Gottlieb. I'm a deed fraud victim, now advocate, and a real estate broker in the state of Arizona. I'm here to educate deed fraud victims trying to get their properties back, inform property owners about this crime, and help develop laws to protect you. Before I go too far, I want to let you know that there are no big secrets to committing this crime. It's super simple to do and on the uprise. What's not simple is trying to get your property back after it happens. And that's why I'm here. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not giving you legal advice. Speaking of legal advice, I've heard attorneys tell people that a trust, loan, equity line of credit, LLC, or corporation will protect you. Sadly, it's not true, and there are victims who I have personally talked with that had loans paid off by title companies in a fraudulent sale. And my criminal stole 4 houses, one owned by a corporation and one by an LLC. 24-year-old Arnaldo Ortiz of Dallas stole a Walmart, Burger King, and a Krispy Kreme, among several multi-million-dollar properties. I can go on and on. If it's property, it's not safe. As a real estate broker in the state of Arizona, I was a victim in 2019 when my deceased father's home was stolen while we were in probate. Since then, I've conducted my own personal crusade, talking to state, county, and local leaders, victims, and attorneys across the United States. I've literally been working with legislators to get laws in place to protect the people of Arizona. And honestly, I didn't expect the politics. We'll talk about that later. First, let me tell you how easy it is to commit this crime. A criminal finds your deed online in public records and creates a new deed, which is the title to your property. A lot of people think their deed is safe, locked up in a safety deposit box, but you don't need the original deed to sell property. A criminal can create the deed, whether a quitclaim deed, warranty deed, any other type of deed. And by the way, these criminals don't know the difference, and they don't care. They sign your name, notarize it, sometimes with a fake notary stamp, and then record it at the county for plus or minus $50. Once the deed is recorded and now in the criminal's name or one of his aliases, the criminal is free to sell your property, borrow money against it by putting a loan on your property, or renting it. Or even in the case of Shannon in Texas, the house she inherited from her grandmother was demolished. Their mode of operation is to advertise your property on websites catering to for sale by owners. Or they'll start calling investors to buy your property. By the time you figured it out, your property isn't in your name, may have been resold, and or it has a loan on the property that hasn't been paid for in months and might even be in foreclosure. The second method, which has the fastest payoff, is where a criminal uses the standard house selling technique. This is what happened in my case. In order for this to work, they have to find a real estate agent and an escrow officer to unknowingly participate. In my case, it was a team comprised of multiple agents representing Zillow as their client and the buyer. The criminal pretends to be you, the owner of any property, even if you're dead, and they forge your signature on the listing paperwork. I'm unaware of any state law in the United States making these participants responsible for doing any reasonable due diligence. When my crime took place, I made efforts to meet with the commissioner at the Arizona Department of Real Estate, and she wouldn't meet with me. Every state has this department. The department is responsible for protecting the public by introducing legislation and ensuring licensed agents adhere to state laws. A few years later, I met with a new commissioner. Her name is Susan Nicholson at the Arizona Department of Real Estate. I explained to her all about this crime and the toll it takes on victims. Susan Nicholson has taken a leadership role to protect the public, used her authority to institute a 1-hour mandatory class on deed fraud for real estate licensees in order to renew their license. This was a stunning and valiant move by Commissioner Nicholson in a politically charged environment, and not only should be applauded, but taken as a best practice and minimally should be the standard throughout the country. We'll talk about this and some other impressive actions taken by Commissioner Nicholson in another video. Once listing paperwork is signed, typically the agent lists your property on their local multiple listing service, or MLS for short. Think of MLS is an app where information is gathered by an agent and then entered into a database with pictures. This app is an advertising medium, mostly locally owned by real estate associations with oversight by the National Association. So when you go online to look for a house, the majority of the houses come from the local MLS. I am not aware of any MLS rule requiring the agent to check the validity of the seller prior to listing the home on the MLS platform. So it's not unusual that these stolen properties are advertised on MLS, which pushes advertisements to thousands of websites across the world, putting property owners and buyers at risk. A few years ago, I met with the CEO of my local MLS to ask him to create a communication tool for real estate agents to utilize to make sure that I'm not listing a property that other agents had found to be fraudulent. For instance, in Queen Creek, Arizona, a piece of land was listed and found to be fraudulent, so the agent temporarily took it off the market. In the meantime, the criminal contacted another agent, and that agent listed the house a second time for a better price and a quicker sale. That second agent never called the first agent to find out why it was taken off the market. And there is no communication tool between agents to make us aware of what is going on with targeted properties. For the potential victim, it's a game of whack-a-mole because you don't know which agent will get tricked into trying to sell your property. When I called my local MLS, which I've belonged to since 1994, to tell them that my father's property was stolen and I wanted the listing to be removed, they told me to get a court order, and all the rights belong to the listing agent. By the way, the listing agent was the first person I called when the crime was discovered, and he made no attempts to shut down that listing until my probate attorney sent them a cease and desist letter. I'll talk about this in another video. Once a written offer is received by the agent and accepted by and signed by the criminal, escrow is opened with an escrow officer or attorney, depending on your state. Neither by law, at least in Arizona, is responsible for verifying that the real owner is selling the property. There is no mandatory training by statute or rule for escrow or title employees, nor is there a communication vehicle between title companies if they should find a fraudulent transaction. The criminal simply moves on to another agent and title company until the transaction closes. When I told my aunt what had happened in my case, she was sure it was my fault if a title company was involved. The truth is, the bar is low, and only they set their own bar and their own rules. A few years ago, I counted. There were about 250 registered escrow companies under the Arizona Department of Financial Institutions, and some not even having an office in Arizona, with very little oversight per state statutes. As a matter of fact, I lodged a complaint against the title company with the Department of Financial Institution. They wrote a letter defending themselves, and then I hired an attorney to write a rebuttal, and I waited for a decision. A number of weeks went by, and as I waited for the determination with respect to my complaint, I was finally told that per statute, only the buyer, Zillow, and the seller, my criminal, could make a complaint against the title company. They promptly closed the case. You might ask yourself, shouldn't the government agency's main objective be to protect the public? It's not true for deed fraud victims, and I have the letters and the emails to prove what happened. So now let's talk about the notaries. In a real estate transaction, the notary might be the only person to physically meet the seller. And during COVID, the title companies came up with an app, and now literally nobody needs to meet the seller. There is a YouTube video where an AI generated fake lady is trying to pass herself off as a seller, and she almost got away with it. Normally, the notary takes an ID from the seller, signs their notary book and the deed, and then stamps the document with a seal and signs the document in a place designated for the notary. There is no requirement for the seller to sign a document at a title company or attorney's office. Many are out of state, some are even out of the country. Although it's not legal, just like it's not legal to steal a house, a criminal may use his own fake notary stamp, lift or replicate a real notary stamp, or may use a fake ID to present to a legitimate notary. There's no one responsible for validating that the notarization on the deed is fake or real. The escrow companies that I've used typically have their vetted notaries and schedule a notary appointment with the seller. At least you know the notary is real. However, Arizona just passed HB 2344, which became law in 2025, undermining the process and giving criminals more leeway to commit deed fraud. There is no law requiring the notary to do any investigation other than accepting an acceptable form of ID. And typically, the notary hasn't even been a part of a real estate transaction or been given any paperwork by escrow that might make the notary suspicious of the ID. And because of privacy laws, the notaries do not keep a copy of the ID. And with the exception of California, a fingerprint of the seller or criminal is not taken. And by the way, my criminal met with 2 notaries, gave his fingerprint, and neither could identify him in the police report. This is a guy that had tattoos all the way up his neck. So when the crime is discovered, the investigator has little to go on for identity. I know of one victim that was in mediation with a title company and a notary, where the title company explained they were not at fault and walked away from the victim. I'll use my crime as an example to demonstrate the reality. My dad purchased the home in 1978. The crime took place in 2019. That would mean my dad owned the property 41 years. This fact is written on the preliminary title report, a report that scans public records for items that might alert the examiner of issues that need to be cleared before title insurance policy will be issued. According to one of the largest national title companies that was involved in my case, they do not look at probate records. The report is issued by the title examiner to both buyer and seller, escrow agent, and real estate agent. Additionally, the real estate agent in Arizona have an app that succinctly shows the agent when a house was purchased. Agents use that app to put listing paperwork together. So, more than 3 professionals knew my dad bought the house 41 years ago. You have to be 18 years old to buy a property. So, 18 plus 41 is what? 59. So the minimum age this criminal should have been was 59. He was 30. He was in his 30s. Not born when he bought the house. The title, escrow, and real estate agents never met him, nor did they collect his ID from the California notaries as a part of the closing packet. The only professional that physically met my criminal were the 2 California notaries and a few of either Zillow or the realtors, not sure which, contractors, said the criminal was calling himself by my dad's name. And he looked like a famous NBA basketball player. So I doubt he was 59. The notaries had no information on the transaction, took his fake ID and a fingerprint because he signed in California. The escrow agent is supposed to wait for the original copy of the deed prior to recording. In my case, the criminal signed on the afternoon of November 12th in California, and miraculously, it was recorded the afternoon of November 12th in Arizona, Maricopa County. Clearly, this title company doesn't follow the rules set by the recorder, which I pointed out, and no one at the county recorder's office was super interested. After recordation has been confirmed, escrow subsequently wires the money to a bank account with your name on it, but opened by the criminal. Parties involved in a real estate transaction can include realtor, escrow officer or attorney, title examiners, appraiser, HOA association management companies, lenders, insurance companies, electric, water, and gas utilities, multiple listing, inspectors, termite inspectors, if it's land, possibly a surveyor, general contractor, possibly a notary, and the county recorder, all unknowing participants in the crime. And not one of these parties have any responsibility to investigate whether they're dealing with the real seller. You can't count on these professionals. And please, no, I am not saying that all these people are oblivious. There are great people in this profession. However, that being said, the criminals are still able to line up a team of professionals to carry out this crime. The only one that cares is you, the victim. That's all it takes. Once your deed has been recorded, your property is no longer yours. It's identity theft on steroids. The implications are astounding, meaning the rightful owner could lose their property forever. The new owner now has a bundle of rights and may take out a mortgage or resell the property. There is a law called the bona fide purchaser for value, which could give the buyer, not aware of the fraud, more rights than you, even if you've owned the property for decades. No one is responsible, and the victim is left on their own trying to figure out how to get their property back. I'll be talking about this in more depth and steps to take as a victim to fight this, of course, with your attorney's approval. I'm taking on the daunting task of building the most comprehensive series of deed fraud videos on the internet. The videos you will find will be on Title Crime social media platforms. We'll have 7 major objectives. First, if you're a victim, you're on your own. I've been there, I made mistakes. So I've developed a series of videos to guide victims through the process to help you recover your property. There are no guarantees, and this is not legal advice, but I believe the information will give you some direction, knowing that not everyone is comfortable with social media, but wanting victims to easily access this information. I hired a web developer to put the series on titlecrime.com. All other videos will be on social media platforms. Second, I'll dissect and present true crimes to demonstrate examples of deed fraud. I'll be utilizing public records such as lawsuits, police records, and interviews. I'll present my own case with a lot of detail and steps I took. But in the meantime, Morgan Lowe, a highly regarded award-winning investigative reporter for azfamily.com, did 2 stories on my case, and I have received their permission to include the news stories for your information. Third, the only way to solve this crime is to develop laws that will prevent this crime from happening. My goal is to make title crime the #1 resource for any legislator, no matter their affiliation, to develop effective deed fraud laws. I plan to present both bills and laws from around the country, since there have been some really great bills that never made it to becoming a law, and other states might find it useful. Let's work on this together. For the public, I'll publish newly introduced deed fraud bills. These are sponsored by legislators that truly care about homeowners. I'll ask that you write your legislators supporting the bill, and we'll even work with you on a 1 or 2 minute speech if you have time to go to the Capitol. Minimally, you need to sign up as to whether you are for or against the bill. Legislators actually look at those numbers. Fifth, I'll present you with a compilation of my recommendations to stop this crime, which can be applied to every state in the nation. As a realtor and a victim, I've spent an inordinate amount of time analyzing this crime and speaking with other victims, state, county, and local leaders to uncover a myriad of actions that can be taken to reduce or eliminate this crime. Right now, the criminals are winning. Sixth, you'll hear intriguing interviews with detectives, attorneys, and legislators to further your knowledge about deed fraud. Seventh and finally, I'll share the steps that I'm going to take today without laws in place. It's not meant to be legal advice, and you can take it or leave it. I encourage you to take my ideas to your trusted advisor, like an attorney, to find a solution right for you. What I might do could be detrimental to your situation or not applicable to your state. So please don't follow me blindly without your own due diligence. Today, you can either pay a company to alert you if your title has changed hands or a loan has been put on your property fraudulently, or many counties offer a service for free. You just have to sign up. There is an assessor, Jeannie Kench, in Mojave County, who came up with a program called the Address Protection Program. Her office will literally call you to ask you if you sold your property, and it's $50 to sign up. Again, it's already happened, but at least you'll have a jump start to stop further damage. Now, these are great programs, but the biggest issue is it alert you after your house has been stolen, after the crime. Kind of like a leak detector, you might put next to a water heater to let you know that the water heater has started to leak, but it's already happened. The damage is done. And like the leak detector, the alert will not step up to pay for all the damages done or for a new water heater. You'll still need an attorney. We need laws that will make this crime impossible to commit. As far as the county recorder is concerned, in most cases, they do zero due diligence. Per state statutes, it's not their job. They look at themselves as a librarian of documents, not as the police of documents. My name is Debbie Gottlieb, the member, manager, and creator of Title Crime LLC. In 1994, I got my real estate license, and in 2006, I began real estate full-time and opened my own brokerage in 2010. From 2006 to 2025, I've sold over 500 homes by myself, not as a team. So I'm pretty knowledgeable about real estate transactions in Arizona and how this crime can happen. Although I never thought it would happen to me, we were successful in getting the house back in February of 2020, 2 months after the discovery and 3 months after the crime occurred. In July 2023, 3.5 years after the crime occurred, my criminal Vicente Anzu went to prison for 5 years, pleading 9 felonies down to 2, and now serving the sentence concurrently for an additional 2 homes that he stole in California. Anzu not only caused 3 innocent people to lose their homes, but left a lot of damage for all 3 victims. More to come. But until there is a nationwide solution, I will continue creating content to keep you informed. Please like, share, and subscribe. I have a lot of great content coming your way.